Oh yeah, head banging. We're back here again, Painfully Honest Tech Podcast. You know what it is. It's that time. It's that day when we're going to talk about some painfully honest tech. This week we have, in fact, this very moment, the Apple Vision Pro has been released to the world, and we're going to talk about it. We're going to talk about the good, the bad, the ugly, and all the things in between, even though neither of us have one.
But we are ugly, and then that makes us the authority on talking about ugly things.
So this is something that comes up all the time. We're going to talk about Apple Vision Pro, maybe a little bit about the S24 Ultra, because I just got mine yesterday, and I'm going to make every effort possible to make my S24 Ultra as set up and in all the ways possible as my iPhone. You know how you use a phone for a year and every password's there, every smart thing's there, all that stuff is set up. So I'm going to make a concerted effort to make the S24 Ultra as set up as my iPhone so that I can really assess it from a usage standpoint. But we'll get to that later. I mean, the one thing that keeps happening with the Vision Pro, okay, I make videos that are like my opinion, right? So I throw my opinion out. Oh yeah, I do it. And one of the knee-jerk responses is, well, you don't have it, so how can you talk about it? And I'm going to tell you why I can talk about it. I've used at least 50% of all of the VR and AR products that have come out since 2016, so I still have an Oculus Rift S, and I've used PSVR. I haven't done the PSVR 2. I've had probably every AR goggle or glasses that's come out in the past year or two. I've tested all this stuff. I know what their capabilities are. So when I look at a demonstration of the Vision Pro, I know what my expectations of the Vision Pro are, and I know what Apple told us our expectations should be. And, well...
Vision, pun intended, is not matching up with expectation. Which
I have concerns. I have concerns. And so that's the thing. It actually makes me kind of depressed. And and it's not just because I don't have one. I don't
need any help in that department.
I decided not to buy one. I probably should have, just so people would shut up. But I probably should have. But I just didn't want to spend, it's like everybody's got some budget limitation out there, right? And when I think about having to buy several smartphones over the course of the year and dig into all the different things that I don't get for free that I want to cover for the channel, taking a $4,000 hit in January is a big hit, right?
Especially for a headset that doesn't even do Netflix or YouTube natively.
Yeah. I mean, the thing that really blew me away and made me glad that I didn't order it, but also depressed because this is the facts of the matter. The Vision Pro, you can use it with your Mac, right? And it will bring up a screen. So if you have a MacBook or if you have a Mac Mini or whatever, it'll bring up a screen and you can look at it. Mm-hmm. But it only lets you do one screen.
What?
You can't. Yeah, it only lets you do one screen locked to a certain aspect ratio. I can't remember exactly what it is, but it's one screen locked to a certain aspect ratio, and you can bring up other Vision Pro apps on either side of it, so it looks like you have triple monitors, but you don't.
When I saw them doing the demo, they had 3 windows open when they had the computer pulled up, or so I thought. I was under the impression you could have 3 different displays set up.
According to So I watched the Verge's, and if you want to watch what I consider pretty fair and unbiased assessment of the Vision Pro, The Verge has the best that I've seen. Now Marquez Brownlee has done a great job He's covered all kinds of different facets of it. Brian Tong has an hour-long video that walks through like every aspect of it, but to me, those are like product demos, right? And The Verge is the only one that I really felt like dug into what the product can do and then provided some context and opinion about what they thought of it. Now, I can't claim to have watched every video that everybody's put out. Who I think only like 7 or 8 people got the thing to release videos on Tuesday or Wednesday, whenever they released them. But to me, it just seems like it still has problems with like fringing around the lenses, which is an old school VR problem. The field of view is smaller than the Meta Quest 3. Yeah, and okay, so I know that you can put yourself in an immersive situation when you're watching content and stuff like that. So the things that I don't know is, how do you transition from that sort of locked off aspect ratio that
immersive environment kind of thing.
I don't know that, and I'm going to get a Vision Pro eventually. I just didn't want to lay out the money like when I did, and because honestly, like, money doesn't grow on trees, and the first quarter of the year is a tough quarter for
especially for content creators. Yeah, it's especially because, like, for those of you who don't know, most of us we need ad revenue, and after the first of the year, most of the companies' ad revenue budgets are kind of spent, and a lot of the stuff in tech comes out in the fall, so there's not generally a whole lot of stuff going on the first quarter of the year, other than like the new Samsung phone.
Yeah, and for me, like, first quarter last year was really tough. It's a long story. We don't need to get into that. So I just wanted to be a little bit more cautious, let's say. But I will get a Vision Pro. I will look at it, and I will try and assess it as fair and balanced wise as I can. But right now, what I've seen has made me kind of bummed out, because I feel like Apple sold us on the potential for what it could be, but the reality of what it is at launch is a pale comparison from what I've seen.
The launch event was pretty exciting. Like, I don't usually get too excited about Apple products. I'm just not a big Apple person. I really enjoy my MacBook Pro. It's what I do my work on. It's what I edit my videos on. I use an iPhone to shoot my videos. So I appreciate some of the things that they make, but I don't get excited about it. Really, many things Apple. And I watched them like, I mean, you got to pay the $3,500 Apple tax, but it looked really impressive. All this spatial computing, all these things you can do, the immersive environment, just the ecosphere and the instant access to all of your other apps and Apple products and stuff. I'm like, okay, like I can see some value in this for people who are interested in this. Of course, it's grassroots, ground level. I mean, we know we're going to pay that entry fee, just like I equated it before. Like whenever we first got flat panel TVs, $5,000 for like a 40-inch TV that is, and now I just walked into Best Buy yesterday. You get a Pioneer, which Pioneer used to be the gold standard, and now Pioneer is like a sub brand. And
they were bought by some other company.
Yeah,
and they're just using their name. Yeah, they're
just using their name. So they had it, but still $350 for like a 60-inch 4K LED TV.
Yeah.
So I mean, I don't think Apple Vision Pro anything will ever be under probably $1,000 or $1,500. Like, it's essentially a MacBook Pro in a headset. So it's never going to be very cheap. But $4,000 right now for basically Apple's take on like a mixed reality headset is a bit steep for me.
Yeah, I agree. And I mean, even if you just put the price aside, when it comes to stuff like multiple screens from your computer, like, maybe you can run virtual desktop on it like you can on other VR headsets. I mean, that's how you can do it on MetaQuest Pro. You can do it on all the meta devices. You can do it on the TCL and the X Reel and the all of the other glasses style things.
Mhm.
So you can run those apps. Now, is there an app developed for Vision Pro that is uh, third party for virtual desktop? I don't know. I don't know. Um, but the whole the whole point of Vision Pro was that it was supposed to conglomerate all your stuff, your phone, your Apple TV, your computer, etc., and bring them all together so that you could experience all those things like in a dynamic environment, right?
Yeah.
And
Spatial computing.
spatial computing. So when I heard that you can only have one locked off sized window for your Mac, I mean, I've got a 55-inch TV over here and a 27-inch monitor over here. And if I wanted to, I'd go get my 49-inch OLED monitor and hook it up too, and have those three monitors running off my MacBook Pro. But the Vision Pro can't do two monitors in a virtual
Well,
space.
I could do one
Why? I
monitor
don't
right
know.
now. I could do one monitor right now with my Lenovo Legion glasses or my Roku that I just plug directly into my computer and my laptop, and it works pretty well.
Yeah, I know. All that stuff is there. All that stuff is available on devices that cost.
$300.
Yeah, I mean, we're talking 10% of what the Vision Pro costs. So you really are buying in for the early adopter FOMO experience. In my estimation, that's what you're paying for. You get to walk out of the store holding up the box and saying, "Yeah, I got it." Tim
Well,
Cook's in New York today, shaking everybody's hand who's in line. I guess I heard this morning that in Atlanta there were like 60 or 70 people standing outside waiting to get their Vision Pros. So it's definitely like an Apple event. People are excited about the device. And I hate to crap on people's excitement. Well, I don't hate to, but I feel like, and you tell me if I'm wrong, being a voice of reason in a situation like this might be something that would be valuable.
well, most of the stuff we've seen so far, and to forgive me for saying this about Papa Apple, but it's been very controlled.
Yeah.
And it's like the way that it's been presented, the way that they gave people select access and I was listening to like the Waveform podcast that Marquez Brownlee was doing. He's like,
Yep.
well, the first time I got to just put it on and kind of look around, and then like the second time they let me use an app, and like the third time they let me type, and like so the way that they've strung along and just given you just this focus, what we want you to see, and in the way we want you to see it, I
Yeah.
don't think really is lining up well with reality. And then my big concern, and I talked to you about this, and I talked about it on the podcast a few months ago. I said, I bet that sucker's going to be heavy. And nobody was talking about the weight of this thing. And then finally, as they were able to release the information, like they could start putting videos out, and Marquez was like, that thing is really heavy.
It's over 600 grams,
Yeah, and for
which
people who are not good with grams, that's about a pound and a half. 454 pounds in a gram. 454 grams in a pound.
so if I remember correctly on the Verge's review, they said that it's the same weight as an iPad Pro 11-inch, or
And that's
maybe a
pretty
little bit
substantial.
more. And for context, if you have experience with like the MetaQuest products, the MetaQuest 3 is about 100 grams lighter. So the VR headsets have always been uncomfortable. They've always been front heavy. It's always been kind of a chore to figure out how to balance it. It's always been a challenge for you to be able to wear it long term
Yeah, you're gonna
in
get
comfort.
fatigue. And
Yeah.
here, so just so I can put something tangible on this. So how many grams did you say it weighs? 600 grams, 700 grams?
610 or something like that, but it's over 600.
Okay, so let's say 600 grams. Just for some context, the AirPods Max weigh 384 grams. So we're talking about almost twice as much, but it's going to be bolted onto the front of your face. So
And it's going to be unbalanced.
yeah, yeah. He said there were Marquez. sorry, gotta identify the he here. He said that there was two straps. There's basically like the single strap band, and then he
Right.
said there was one
Which you
that
can
like
tighten. Yeah.
he said there was another one that's kind of like a dual kind of strap that kind of sits more on the top of your head. And he was like, yeah, it was really heavy. So I expressed concerns about this. I don't use a Quest. I don't use the only thing I use is usually like XR glasses because I have some serious structural problems in my neck. Like I got like 4 severely herniated discs from when I was in the military. So that stuff it causes me pain and gives me headaches with like the lighter ones.
Hmm.
So I was like, until we can shave some of the weight off of this, I don't really see myself spending 4 grand on it. I mean, that's just a significant investment for something I can't use for very like a long time.
No, yeah, I totally get it. And when people talk about the weight, if you haven't used any kind of headset in the past, I mean, so Vision Pro is going to be lighter than some of the earlier headsets that came out. Of course, technology shrinks as more iteration happens. Um, but if you haven't worn a VR headset in the past, I don't think that you can really fully appreciate like not only how heavy it is, but how that weight is distributed on your head, right?
Mm-hmm.
So you can tighten it down a lot, and you can make it so that it won't move, but that doesn't make it any less heavy or any more comfortable. Now I wear a CPAP at night, and it CPAP is very light. Okay, so it's just a plastic face mask, right?
Mm-hmm.
But it is not the most comfortable thing to wear all the time. So, because you have something on your face.
Mm-hmm.
And there's something about knowing that you have something on your face that is different than like having a watch on your wrist, right? Having a watch on your wrist doesn't, maybe it's that there are, fewer nerves or sensory apparatus on the wrist or whatever. Like you get used to wearing shoes. I don't feel like I've never gotten used. I don't feel like I've ever gotten used to wearing anything on my face other than a pair of glasses, which weigh fractions
Yeah,
of
that's
what a
negligible. I mean, there's always some level of adaptation and fatigue. Like when I first got my Apple Watch Ultra, I was like, man, this sucker's heavy. But after 2 days, you don't really notice it anymore. So for most people, I mean, you can go buy one of those things that Joe Rogan advertised where it's like a thing to work out your neck to build up some strength in your neck. And you
right.
just sit there and you pull on it. So if you want to get one of those, you'll probably not notice the Apple Vision Pro on your face after like a few weeks. But I'm sure that as with anything, even whenever it's using heavy objects or things that are fatiguing, like you can overcome that
Yeah,
with wear and with using it. So I don't want to ding them for this because innately anything in that technology sector is going to have some weight. So I
yeah,
can't be like, well, Apple's the only one that makes a heavy thing that goes on your face. I'm just saying for something that is that heavy going on my face, I'm not spending 4 grand because I just can't use it that much.
yeah.
But
And I mean, you've got a extenuating circumstance that makes it more challenging. But for one thing, making it out of aluminum and glass again, we've
heavier.
got uh the my biggest problem long term with the AirPods Max was the build, what it was made out of, and how it reacted to like how I felt wearing it. Aluminum ear cups are not a great material to make headphones out of. Like stainless steel bands, not
I
the
got rid of
greatest.
mine.
Yeah,
I
I did too. Ultimately,
I liked them. I thought they looked cool. I thought the build quality was very good, but they were just so fatiguing to wear. Like
yeah.
I have my Bose ones, I have other ones. I would wear them for like an hour. I'm like, man, my neck is tired. Like I don't want to wear these anymore.
And my problem was that they would always, because at first I thought, oh, they're rectangular. That's an interesting shape for ear cups, but they don't seal right on your head, or at least comfortably. And then I always felt like they were front heavy. They were always like falling off my head in that
Oh
direction.
yeah, heaven forbid you wanted to look down while you were wearing those things.
And so I have tons of, just for context, I have tons of headphones, and at a different portion of my YouTube career, I made a lot of videos about headphones, and I have studied headphones quite extensively. So I know what I prefer, and I know what is generally a better experience wearing a set of over-the-ear headphones. And the AirPods Max do not deliver that experience. And if they were $200 or $300, maybe you give them a little bit more of leeway, right?
Yeah, but
But
not
at
$600 headphones.
$550, it's kind of like you expect everything to be perfect. And I think that the Vision Pro is kind of a similar thing where it's like, okay,
Yeah.
if you're going to charge me, if I can buy the Roked glasses for $300 and they give me this experience, then I'm not, and it's a decent experience, but it's not like world changing, but it has value that is commensurate with its price, right?
Well, I got to thinking the other day, and I'm like, okay, in a vacuum, everybody's talking about $3,500 for the Apple Vision Pro, and then I'm like, okay, to really even use the Apple Vision Pro and get any full utilization out of it, there's basically two experiences. You have like you get apps and stuff from your iPhone, and then there's using it with your MacBook. If you don't have a MacBook and an iPhone, there's not really a whole lot of point to get the Vision Pro.
Yeah.
But what can you buy? What can you buy for the cost of the Apple Vision Pro? Well, you can get a MacBook Pro. You can also buy an iPhone 15 Pro Max. You can buy the AirPods Max, and you can get a set of XR glasses cheaper
Yeah.
than you can get an Apple Vision Pro. I'm like, man, like just the sink of money that one, you have to justify the existence of this headset for full usage, and two, what you can get that basically you're just putting some glasses on your head to view is, I don't know,
And
it's a lot.
And if at this point, which it seems to me like it really is, if at this point it is more an entertainment delivery system, right? Most of its apps that seem to work best and give you the best experience are entertainment driven apps. What kind of TV could you buy? Or what kind of home theater setup could you buy for $3,500?
Well, I
I
have a
mean,
bone to pick with Apple anyway. There was one thing that really, really irked me. So from the get go, they're like, "Oh, we're only going to be able to make 45 or 50,000 of these to first run. Like that's all that's going to be available." And they make it seem like, okay, this is some rare gem that you're mining that you're just barely gonna have enough to scrape
yeah,
by to get day one interest. And then they're like, "Oh, we sold 200,000." I'm like,
yeah.
so you basically artificially lowered the amount to
Well, they tweaked they tweaked demand by underselling scarcity or overselling, depending on how you want to look at it, right?
yeah.
And so that's market tampering
I
straight
find that
up.
to
I
be
mean,
very disingenuous. I'm like, that's a crap move.
but we also, I mean, I guess the thing that we can't know, I think they said like 60 or 80,000. That's the number I remember available at launch. But they did sell through 200,000 units or so.
Mm-hmm.
And I don't know how many of those units are like delayed delivery. Like the initial run sold out and they just kept taking pre-orders, but you won't get yours until like June. I don't know that. But yeah, even so, they definitely primed the pump with the market to say like, oh, we're going to only have this many. They've done it with the iPhone before in the past, and it is a marketing technique. Apple has used it to their advantage many times, so I get it. But it is, especially with a device that costs. I feel like I always come back to the cost, and I feel like a lot of people come back to the cost. But the truth of the matter is, like, there's not another Apple product that you can buy off the shelf that costs that much money.
Mm-hmm.
You can buy a $3,500 MacBook if you go to the Apple store and you buy like the most expensive MacBook that they make that you can buy off the shelf without special order.
Yeah, but that brings me to another point. So we didn't really get a lot of information on the specs whenever this thing came out, and Whenever I finally heard that the $3,500 base model Apple Vision Pro has
Yeah.
256 gigabytes of storage,
Yeah.
like, what kind of rocks are these guys smoking? That's like, how are you gonna like? It's a self-contained apparatus. You're not gonna be able to upgrade it. It's not like, oh, I bought a MacBook Air. Let me go get the Pro next year, and I'll get the 1 terabyte, and that's still only like $2,000. How are you gonna have this headset that costs that much money? We know how much storage space costs. Like going from like the manufacturer paying for it,
Yeah.
it's like a buck for them to go from
Yeah.
256 to 512, and then they're going to sell you this $4,000 headset with 256 gigabytes of storage. Like, how much storage does the OS take up?
Yeah. So we didn't know if there would be multiple storage tiers or anything like that, but when pre-orders came out, you could get 256 for the $3,500 that they were asking. You could get 512, and I think it was 39 something
Yeah, for the one
for
terabyte.
1 terabyte. And I guess the question is, how much of how much are you going to be storing on the Vision Pro versus how much is it going to be tethered in one way or another to another device?
Well, my
Like if
concern was not so much storage. I mean, of course, installing apps is storage, but like the apps you install on it will be the biggest concern.
right.
So, and I'm sure some of these things, if you want to have a video you download, or if you, I don't know. There's just, I don't know the
Something
symbiotic
like
relationship.
games.
Yeah,
Yeah.
like a game or a media experience, like
Yeah.
especially with the 4K high texture packs, is like that stuff takes up space.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, imagine trying to trying to install Warzone at like 200 gigabytes.
Yeah, like oh, you can have iMessage and Warzone. That's it.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, it is like Apple does a good job with iCloud of giving you ways to offload stuff that doesn't need to be there. However, and I've used Macs with 256 gigabytes of storage and not had any problems, but I've been able to use external hard drives and other things to alter my workflow. So there are many questions, I guess. And I want to say again, like, I don't want to poo-poo the Vision Pro just out of hand. Like when it first was announced, I was excited. I was like, this is going to be incredible. But since then, as we've learned more things, I've just been kind of like, this isn't quite as exciting as, uh, this isn't quite as exciting as I hoped it would be. And then as I saw these initial reviews, it was even less ready for prime time in my estimation than
Well,
it seemed like it should be.
there was a lot of stuff people were talking about that was like still in beta when it comes to
Yeah.
the app. I'm like, so how much of this stuff is actually going to be ready on day one? And that was a concern that I had. And I wasn't like, okay, I wasn't even totally, I'm against getting the Apple Vision Pro, but I'm not going to pay $4,000 on it for day one. I've started with new technology before from ground one. I remember when BlackBerry 10 came out and there was like no apps. You're like, cool, I've got Facebook. And
Yeah.
then you're like, what else am I going to do on my phone other than just like text and stuff?
Right.
So I figured there would be kind of a learning curve with this. And it's just like whenever you have video game consoles that come out, what you get on day one, and then once the programmers learn how to exploit the hardware and make better things for it 2 or 3 years
Right.
later, it's a significantly improved experience. So I'm like, okay, there's going to be a learning curve. App developers have to learn how to make things for this in a meaningful way. 6 to 12 months later, it's probably going to be a lot better experience. So, like, if I'm going to spend the money, I'm not going to be rushing to get one day one. I'm like, I'm not really going to make content about this. Like, I don't care that much. My audience doesn't care, but I want to have a product that I can use that's meaningful, not just
Yeah.
I can just put my Legion glasses on and watch Netflix right now. So,
Yeah. And the thing is, like, so I have the Oculus Rift S. I had the Oculus Rift before it, and I can't tell you the last time I plugged my Oculus Rift S into my PC and used it.
so I
I
had the
literally
Oculus.
can't tell you.
I had the Oculus. I had the Windows mixed reality
Yeah.
headset. I had the Samsung HMD Odyssey. I mean, I've had quite a few of them. I mean, I've tried them, and it's kind of neat, but it's not like it's cool for like an hour.
And the thing is, one of the things that I was really excited about with the Oculus Rift S was I was trying to get into a game that was like a space travel kind of open world game. And I thought it would be a really cool way to immerse myself in that game and really feel like I was doing what my avatar in the game was doing, right? A more immersive experience. But I found that, with that headset particularly, it was challenging because, like, if you're using a controller, that's one thing. If you're using a HOTAS, where you're trying to like steer the thing and hit other buttons and stuff, and you like, there's no vision pass through, so that was just,
You can't see it. Yeah.
yeah, I couldn't do it. I just didn't have the muscle memory, and I guess so. There have always been these problems, and one issue that the Vision Pro has that I think will be frustrating to people to begin with until they like learn what the parameters are, and that becomes muscle memory, is where can your hands be? Because you don't have any other controller but your hands. Like, where can your hands be, um, in order to still be in the view of the Vision Pro so that you can use it? Because,
Well, yeah, because you have to tap your fingers to
yeah,
basically activate things, and then there's a back button. So, like continually, if you need to back up, you're going to be going "Boop," like taking a
yeah, hitting
picture
the,
on your headset,
yeah,
pushing the little action button. But you know, it's I think the experience, and I haven't used it yet, so I don't. I'm just from what I have seen, it reminds me a lot of like we had these big promises. You remember when like the Oculus came out, and then
yeah,
they really started hammering in on these things, and you see all these cool game demos, and then you finally get one, and you realize you can't walk anywhere. You have to like do these little jumps to different parts, and it just puts you there, and then
yeah.
you're stationary interacting. I'm like, this is not how this was presented to me.
And the thing is, like, I never wanted to use VR in the standing position. Like, I wanted, like, so that to me was like the big disconnect. VR is supposed to be you're standing and having this virtual reality experience, and I never, like, I wanted to have it on my face and be immersed in a different way. But
Mhm.
think about how long we've had dev kits, and then we had the Oculus Rift, and then we had the Oculus Rift S, we had the HTC Vive, we've had all these. I Steam
It's
had
like
their own set.
10 plus years. Yeah.
What's the most popular game for virtual reality headsets?
You're like Beat Saber or
Beat
something.
Saber. Beat Saber, which is just basically like Simon with your arms, right?
Which I
It's
mean, it reminds me of Bop It. Did you remember the Bop It apparatus?
Yeah, and it's also a lot like Guitar Hero,
Yeah.
so it makes sense. But you would think after 10 years that there would be some AAA gaming experience that leveraged VR to make it a different kind of gaming experience.
And it
But
just doesn't exist.
instead we just have like sword fighting with music,
Or
and that,
there's a
like,
cool
you,
one my kids have now. I got my son the Quest 3 for Christmas,
right.
and they had like three Quest 2s already because they like to play VR games together. And most of them look like crap, by the way. But they have this one that it's basically it's like Madden, but you're playing from the quarterback perspective. So you're throwing the passes and like start calling the plays and stuff. So it's kind of neat, but it looks like the graphics are like terrible. So I'm sure we're going to see some maybe next level stuff with this. But one of the big things that really concerned me is so I was listening to Marcus talk, and he's like, "All right, so there's two ways you can type on this thing. You can do the little pigeon finger typing
Yeah,
on the virtual keyboard in this
hunt and peck. Yeah,
arena. You can hand peck, or you can look, and as you're moving your eyes, you're looking at the letters, and then you're just tapping with your finger. And all I could think about when he was talking about that was T9 typing
Yeah.
on the old Nokia brick phone where I'm like,
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
111. Yeah, I'm like, this thing, for being a spatial computing apparatus, lacks the core input method level of proficiency that I have with the keyboard.
Well, so, and people say like you can do so you can hook up a Bluetooth keyboard and type like that. But that seems to me like okay, you can do that and that'll work fine and you can see your fingers because of the visual pass through and stuff. But if a fully realized version of Vision Pro or any kind of device like that has to have its own input input method that is as good as the input methods that we have for computers, right?
Yeah, like
And
my MacBook keyboard is great, but if I have to type on my MacBook keyboard to be proficient, why am I wearing a headset where I have to look down at my keyboard when I can just use my MacBook?
yeah, but and the reason, well, so right now, I'm sure that the virtual keyboard will get better. They'll develop something that is at least a little bit more passable. But maybe you have to learn sign language. I don't know. But but
Well, I
but
can't rely on Siri. They're like, well, you can talk to it. I'm like, have you tried
yeah,
talking to Siri?
that's what people say. Well, you can do dictation. And I will say that dictation in terms of like text dictation to Mac OS and other Apple OSs is more reliable than Siri. But the thing is, like, if you're wearing something like that, you want to leverage Siri and AI capabilities well beyond what Siri is capable of now.
Oh
And I
yeah.
think that we're going to hear from Apple later on this year about what AI they've been working on and what it's going to do and where they're going to have it and all these other things.
Well, they've
Because
been
they,
largely silent on that.
yeah,
Like we've heard all this. Like Google has been pushing AI for the last year. Samsung now is tap dancing in the AI frontier, and I say tap dancing because I think it's very surface level. Like I'm really not impressed what the reality of like there was all this Samsung AI, Galaxy AI, AI for everyone. It shows up. It's like we have circle to search, and then as soon as the keynote ended, Google's like, oh yeah, we made that, and it's coming out on our phone at the end of the month too. So
well, I can say last night I tried to ask like a totally contextual question to Bixby.
mm,
And just thinking to myself, like, if I ask this question to Siri, what kind of response would I get? And I know that the Siri response would be, I don't know what you're asking me.
yeah.
Right. I asked Bixby this contextual question, like what year did this happen with who and who, so and so, whatever. I can't remember exactly what it was, but it had a few different avenues that had to go down in order to come up with the answer. And it did come up with an answer, like kind of a chat GPT style answer to the question. So I was like, okay, that's cool. Because I know that the iPhone can't do that unless you're using the chat GPT app. So
So largely everybody likes the iPhone. I mean, I'd say generally, I mean, they're like 80% of phone sales in the US. So we can probably say most everyone likes iPhones.
sure.
Um, most people like AirPods. Most people like Apple Watches. Most people like iPads. But most commonly, people hate Siri. Like Siri is
Yeah.
so sucky and uninspiring. And when they first came out with it, it was kind of like mostly better than the other alternatives. It was kind of a new thing.
Well, the thing
But
is, yeah, they bought the company and they integrated it into like the iPhone 7,
mhm,
right? And it was rudimentary, but you could see the potential.
yeah,
And really, Google hadn't done their thing yet. I don't think it came out until like maybe not long after, but Siri was the first on board. Of course, now she pays attention. The first on board for a phone
mhm,
virtual assistant, right? And since that time, Google and Samsung and everybody else is
yeah.
like, hey, now we've
Taking
got
off
like
much
super.
farther.
This thing can make phone calls for you and talk for you and answer your phone and do all this other stuff, let alone all the other things it can do. And Siri can't do a web search.
Oh, Siri's still so stupid. It doesn't know when you're talking to it half the time. I'll be like, "Hey, honey, what do you want to do for dinner?" And then my phone's like, "What were you asking me?"
Yeah,
I'm like, I wasn't asking you. I didn't say your name. I didn't. It's just you can say the weirdest things, and Siri will activate on your
yeah,
phone or your watch. I'm like, no, 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 stop, stop, stop.
yeah. And I know Siri has gotten somewhat better over the years, but not to the point that the other virtual assistants have gotten. And I don't think they're all the way to where they need to be either. But with this AI behind it, I think we're going to start getting to that place where we can contextually speak to the AI in our devices and they can respond with context. That's the
One
big
day,
that's the big leap forward where you can speak to it like a person and
conversational.
and it'll understand the context and all the other things that you're trying to understand and then it will spit out a contextual answer, right?
Mhm.
That's that's what the sort of uncanny valley of virtual assistants is right now. They are not person like enough.
Well, it just isn't. Here's my concern. One of the biggest things that Apple really, 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 really hangs their hat on is seamlessness. Like everything
Yeah,
just works. And
except for
for a
Siri.
lot of, yeah, except for Siri, but largely most of their stuff,
Yeah,
showing the camera, quote unquote, just works. And I have concerns about the levels of roadblocks that will just not give you the experience I think you should expect for $4,000 at this point in time.
yeah, yeah. I think I'll be interested to say like look at Vision Pro in 6 months
Yeah.
and see like okay, so the avatar thing they're doing where you can like model your face and talk to people, um, and it looks really weird. It looks like you were made out of clay.
Yeah,
um,
it reminds me of you remember Gumby back in the day? It's like a
yeah,
it's like an updated
it
Gumby
can't do
avatar.
hair. So it's like you're playing
Oh,
a
it's
video
perfect for
game on
me
the
then.
yeah. It looks like you're playing a video game from like the PlayStation 2. Like actually this I was trying to think of what it reminded me of and now I know. It
Those are the
reminds me
Fallout
of like
avatars.
the early Tomb Raider games. Where you know, where like the face is clearly looking kind of like a realistic face, but then everything else is just not right.
Did you
And
play the original Fallout games like Fallout 1, Fallout 2?
no, I didn't get those. I
Oh,
didn't
you see
start
like
until
just the,
like
the avatar face would show up for somebody when you're interacting with them
yeah.
and it's like 1995
Yeah.
level
Well, I guess also like Skyrim and games like that where that kind of reminds me of what now if for those people who don't know what we're talking about, they call it personas. And you take the Vision Pro and you like scan your face and it does a couple of different things. It shows your eyes when someone walks up to you and you start talking to them, but it doesn't really show your eyes. It shows like a picture of your eyes,
Yeah.
which to me is like weird. But then also if you're in a virtual call with somebody, it'll show this persona that it's created for you and you kind of look like yourself. It's still in beta, so I'm not going to be too hard on it. But man, it looks like everybody has a thumb with a face on it and it's just like so
It's very weird. Watching it, I can't help but be incredibly critical because I'm sitting there looking at the mouth move, and I feel like I'm watching an old Japanese English dub of Godzilla. And like
yeah.
you see them talking, and the lips are going, but it's not the algorithm doesn't quite match up with reality. And this is a nitpicky thing,
I would
and I don't want to come off as like, oh, I hate Apple Vision Pro because like the little avatar image
yeah.
looks stupid, but
I would have loved it if they gave us a choice, right? Like, you know, they got the memojis that you can do on your iPhone and your iPad for texts and other
yeah, you
things
can
like that.
customize it.
Like if I could have my memoji in a group chat or call or Zoom call or whatever, if I could, that seems like it would be easier to do because they already have the ability to like record you talking and the memoji will move its mouth, right?
Well, they don't want to be Facebook. 'Cause I remember whenever, I mean, there's a lot, and a lot of the concerns I have with this are not so much even Apple driven. It's just like that space just doesn't line up with, I think, the image that they're trying to project for what you're going to get. It's like I remember when they talked about Meta, and then Meta spaces, like all that stuff, and then you see these little cartoon characters sit down for meetings, and that's
Yeah.
your. And I'm
It's
like,
like you're a
okay,
little stick person. It's like you're in Roblox.
yeah. So,
Which,
and I understand. Like, look, we're going to be probably ridiculed to the high heavens because we're haters as soon as people see this on Twitter. But I'm like you said in the beginning, this video is not to hate on this product. I'm
right.
glad that they did it. I'm glad they did it because once you need somebody to step into the space, and yes, it's going to cost money, but that's the investment cost to drive this technology.
Yeah. I
So
mean,
we're in
that
the infantile stages of where we're trying to get as far as like incorporating this into reality.
we somebody needed to go from like 3 to 5 or even like $1,000 devices that are half measures in terms of like what the potential of the hardware to do could do. We needed somebody to go like completely over the horizon and create something that was super forward looking, even if it wasn't going to pay off its potential at the beginning. Okay.
Mhm.
And that's what Apple Vision Pro is. It is like a moonshot type device where the potential that it has is nowhere near what it is right now. And I know that I'm criticizing it for that, but that's mostly because based on what Apple sold us and based on what I know other VR headsets can do, and based on my expectations for what Apple Vision Pro can be, it seems like not enough.
Yeah,
And so
at this
that's
point in
what,
time.
yeah. But 6 months, a year, 2 years, Apple Vision Pro 2, like I think that we'll start to see a lot more a lot more development, and it'll start to move quicker and quicker. But to be frankly honest, Apple needed a large scale beta pool of
Mhm.
users, right? And so they sold $3,500 headsets to their beta testers.
And I want to do something real quick. I want to do something. I'm not gonna embarrass myself by doing math publicly. So I'm gonna use a calculator you can't see on the screen. So $3,500. Let's just say. So here in Texas, what is it? Is it $34.99 or $35.99? It's $35.99, isn't it?
I, I
Let's just say
can't.
3,500
Yeah,
bucks, 3,500
yeah,
even. All right. So here in Texas, we have 8.25% sales tax. So times 1.0825, 37.88 for the base model here in Texas, effectively. So
without
let's
the
just
lenses.
let's just round it up to $4,000, and they
Yeah,
sold through 200,000.
200,000. They made like $600 million.
Yeah, if you look at $4,000, and that kind of also takes into consideration like the 1 terabytes more, the 512s
Yeah,
more. So let's say $4,000 because they don't get tax, right? That
right.
goes to the man. So, but roughly, yeah, 600 to 800 million dollars they've already
Yeah,
made off of this.
yeah. Um, well, and again, when we say made, we don't really mean that they like took that money and put it in
Put
the
in their
bank
pocket.
and
No, they have
and said
research
like,
and
hey, there's another six
development
hundred
and put it.
million
Yeah, yeah.
dollars, because Apple's not going to make money off the Vision Pro until probably Vision Pro like 3 or 4, because the amount of R&D, the amount of creating new manufacturing processes, the amount of programming, the amount of everything that goes
Special
into,
materials. Like it
yeah,
costs a lot. A lot of people don't realize a lot of times when companies put out hardware, like if you look at the PlayStation, I remember when the PlayStation 3 came out and they were selling it for $400 or
yeah,
500. They're like, oh, this thing costs seven
500,
hundred
yeah.
dollars to make. Yeah, it cost more money to make than they were recouping selling it for,
But
and that's why they.
think about how much more that was compared to the Xbox 360 that was its contemporary. You can get
Mhm,
Xbox 360 for $300, right?
mhm.
And the big selling point for the PlayStation 3 was you could play Blu-rays,
Yep.
so you could replace your DVD player. And I guess when you're thinking about, okay, we can sell it for at a loss, because nobody was going to pay $700 for a gaming console in 2013, I think is when that came out. And so, or no, it would have been earlier than that, like 2008-ish, 2007, 2008. So
yeah, because I was playing Fallout 3 on my PlayStation 3 in 2010. So
yeah, the PlayStation 4 came out in 2013-ish. And so yeah, nobody was going to pay $700 in 2008 for a PlayStation.
But that's funny though. A lot of people always ridicule Nintendo because their graphics look like crap, right? But Nintendo doesn't lose money on their consoles. Every console that they make, they actually break even or make a slight profit on it. And then they still charge you $59 for the 8th reiteration of the original Mario game.
Yeah, exactly. Well, I mean, and the thing is, like, I think that strategy has worked for Nintendo because they're
People love
not
the game so much.
They're staying within their yard per se. And they're not trying to create a moonshot. They're not trying to push the technology forward. They're not trying to do anything particularly special.
They just want to make the best gosh darn Mario Kart game they can make.
Yeah. And meanwhile, like, PlayStation was pushing the envelope with the PlayStation 3.
Oh, yeah, for sure.
And so the same thing is true for Vision Pro. Vision Pro is pushing the envelope pretty hard when you look at the Meta Quest 3, or you look at the Rokid glasses or the TCL stuff or anything like that. Like, so Vision Pro is sort of like Apple has gone to the moon and put down the Apple flag and said, we're the first to this portion of the moon, whatever, So kudos to them for that, because they do deserve credit for pushing it forward. The thing that now matters the most is, can they pay it off? Can they, within a reasonable timeline, pay off what they've promised?
I think they'll be able to, and that's one of the things here. I think a lot of what our frustration here is, like, day one experience doesn't look like it matches up with what we were told it was going to be.
Right.
Like how it was laid out. It just was made to look larger than life, and just really doesn't come out that way, I don't think. But going back to the PlayStation 2, PlayStation 3, remember the PlayStation 2 had like the emotion engine, like the 8-core chip, like all that crazy stuff. When it first came out, I was like, wow, these games kind of look underwhelming. That's because nobody knew how to program for it to capitalize on the hardware. But then you look at PlayStation 2 games like 2, 3, 4 years later, or you look at PlayStation 4, like, as people learn to exploit the hardware and develop for it, it's just going to get better and better and better. And there's just a learning curve that comes along with that.
Yeah, I mean, if you think about it, PlayStation 3, sort of the moonshot game for PlayStation 3, the game that really took advantage of as much as you could do with that console, was Last of Us.
Yeah, and it looked amazing.
And I'd never seen anything like it. You look at Last of Us graphics from the PlayStation 3 now, and you look at the remastered versions, and you're like, holy moly, like how far we've come. But imagine what it's going to be like when PlayStation 5 has reached, its 5-year apex and is maybe approaching like end of life in terms of being a model. But we're talking PlayStation 5. PlayStation 1 came out in the 90s.
Yeah, like Final Fantasy VII, they had like blocks for hands, and now things look like true to life.
So, due to the doubling time of how anything moves forward, I don't think we'll wait that long for Vision Pro to become the PlayStation 5 of VR headsets. But yeah, we're maybe this is the analogy. It's still PlayStation 3, which is pretty good, right? which is really impressive, and it's got like brand new technology that nobody's ever put in a thing like that. Uh, but it's going to take some time for it to get there.
Mhm.
You know, and so
And I think that's a fair criticism. And what I don't like, so you have people like MKBHD, Michael Fisher. They're like, don't buy a product for what it can do in the future. You buy it for what it can do right now, because that could
right,
be the best that could be the best it gets. Like, so, I mean, most people have a lot of faith in Apple to see this through,
yeah,
but still, you measure it for what it is right now. And I remember when the Surface Duo came out, and like day one, people like, are you like, well, we'll look towards to the next one, and then
yeah,
and they just write it off and say, okay, well, we'll just maybe the next one. And I'm not saying we need to do that with this, but looking at where we're at now, and then thinking about the maturity of the OS, the maturity of the ecosystem, the maturity of the apps and programmers developing for it, probably by the time we get to the Vision Pro 2 and 3, it'll be just like it was with the Apple Watch 3, where it like finally started to measure up to
yeah.
the potential of what we wanted it to be.
Apple Watch 3 was sort of like the moment when Apple Watch became a viable product and not something in
Just
development.
yes.
Yeah. Yeah. There's no $17,000 version of the Vision Pro though.
Hey, yeah, I mean, we don't have Beyonce buying a $30,000 Apple Watch like Gen 1 because it has, so I mean, maybe
Yeah.
this is better. It's a step in the right direction.
Yeah.
But think about that though. Look at what you could get, like let's say 10 years ago, hardware wise. And then there is this excitement here because I am excited about it. I
Yeah.
want to go to the Apple store and try one out, just because I'm curious, because I'm a big tech nerd. I mean,
Yeah.
and that's the thing. Like, I had to keep myself from buying this by placing the context on it, knowing like, look, I don't think this is ready yet. I will spend my money on that when I feel like I'll get my money out of it.
Yeah, and I kind of feel the same way in the sense that like I really wanted to buy it. I was very excited about it as just a general idea, and then based on what Apple was promising, I was kind of like, I knew it wouldn't be that, but that's the kind of technology that I've been waiting for. Like all that like near future science fiction stuff where we live in a virtual world and we do everything there except use the bathroom. you know
Oh
so
yeah, I can't wait until I hope one day they make immersive environments for these things, like the holodecks on Star Trek, or like some sort of a movie experience where
yeah,
you're like on the set, like while
yeah.
you're watching anything happen, like a Blade Runner movie. That'd be so cool.
And I think we'll see stuff like that because the component parts are already there. Like think about how much better 360 video has become, right?
Hmm.
So if you watch any action cam 360 video, it's weird because like you can't see the camera and you can barely see the person holding the stick that the camera's on, and you get like all these different angles and you can choose, right? So we
Oh, yeah,
got
well,
that. We've got that. And
remember
now
when the
we've got
GoPros first came out and they were like not that great? It was just you
yeah.
could finally like carry a camera around, and now I saw more people walking around CES with the GoPro. What is it? The little handheld one. What's it called?
Oh no, that's the
Oh,
DJI
DJI. Yeah,
Pocket
DJI. Yeah,
Osmo 3.
yeah. So that's similar technology, but they put it
Yeah,
into like a hand cam. I saw so many people walking around with Osmo 2s and Osmo 3s instead of like a regular camera. So the
yeah,
technology is headed in the right place,
yeah,
and this is just like, okay, from a prudent perspective, if you look back 10, 15 years ago, would I recommend somebody go buy a $5,000, $10,000 TV? No, you say wait a few years, it'll get better and it'll be
yeah,
cheaper.
yeah. I mean, I remember when I bought my first OLED TV in 2017. It was like, so it was the B17, the LG OLED B7,
Hmm.
and it was the sort of step down model from the C. I mean, the
Hmm.
C was like thousands and thousands of dollars, and this was at Christmas time, at like holiday time, marked down to I think like $1,700, $1,800, and it was a 55 inch.
Hmm.
And you can go get a C, like a LG C3
I think
now.
those suckers on sale for like 600, $500 during the holidays.
Yeah, I mean you can get the 65-inch on sale for like $1,500.
Mhm.
So those prices have come way down, and that technology has like worked its way into a lot of other stuff. So we're gonna see the same thing, but I think at the end of the day, like the reason that I have expressed skepticism about the Vision Pro is not because I don't want the Vision Pro to succeed, and it's not because I have FOMO, and it's not because of any of that stuff. I just feel like, and this is where I end up kind of all the time, that there has to be somebody sitting there saying, "Hey, okay, this is cool, but Apple promised us something different, and it's not there yet, and and it's not." I just feel like there has to be a voice of like a con voice to the pros.
Hmm.
You know what I'm saying? Not the Vision Pro, but like so many people are going to be pro this, pro that, pro, and we're going to see a lot of content that's just like over the moon, and maybe rightly so. I don't know, but I think that for me, having had experience with many VR products in the past, it's it's it behooves me to be a voice of reason, and so we were going to talk about the S23 Ultra or S24 Ultra, but we've been going, and
Yeah.
I got an eye appointment. I might not have red glasses the next time you see me because I don't know if they still have red glasses available.
Well,
For
as long as you don't have like an eye patch or have to get an eye replacement or something.
Yeah, yeah. I think it's 2 years now that I haven't had an eye exam, so it's time. It's time.
I have to go to the eye doctor every year because my left eye is falling apart, and they have to like patch it up every once in a while.
Yeah, I I think the worst that I've had is like floaters, which are fun, but we won't get into that. I got to go
No.
to the eye doctor, and I got another couple of appointments, so we're going to cut it a little bit short this week. But I think this was a healthy discussion about the Vision Pro, and I hope everybody, if you're listening at this point, please let us know down in the comments like what you think about the Vision Pro at launch, and whether or not you think it's gonna ever reach its potential.
Yeah.
Uh,
So too long didn't read. We don't hate Apple. Well, I mean, I do, but we don't hate the Apple Vision Pro, and we're not hating on the Apple Vision Pro. We're just having a realistic discussion about what was talked about and shown to us, and then where we're at on day one with what it appears based off of what we've seen.
right. So thanks again, folks, for being here once again. This is the Painfully Honest Tech Podcast with me, Jason T. Lewis, and our good friend Adam Matlock. From the Tech Odyssey channel. You should go check out his channel. You should subscribe to this channel. You should do all kinds. Share this with your friends.
Yeah.
Like and subscribe. And okay, I think I've hit them all. Trying to do my YouTuber duty and get people to respond to my calls to action. Anyway, we'll be back next week. And I will have more experience with the S24 Ultra, which then I think we could have a better conversation about it.
I've had mine for a week. You will then have had yours by a week. I will have my full review out likely by then. So we can have a very healthy discussion about the S24 Ultra.
Yeah, so tune in for that next week. Otherwise, thanks so much for being here once again. Jason, Adam, Painfully Honest Tech Podcast, the podcast so honest it hurts. Until the next time, we're out.